Welcome to today's webinar. We really appreciate you joining us today. I'm going to turn things over to Wafa so that she can introduce our great speakers. Enjoy today's webinar.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second IFTDO webinar of this year, From Data to Direction, Transforming Association Analytics with AI. Let's welcome together our two speakers for today, Marco Calabrese and Hugh Halford-Thompson, to discover how organizations are transforming their approach to decision-making through artificial intelligence. So thank you so much, Marco and Hugh. The floor is yours. Before starting, allow me to recap again about our 51st IFTDO World Conference and Exhibition for 2025 in June 17 till 19. This year it will be in Jakarta, Indonesia. Be so many and join us. And if you need more information, we're always available. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Marco, it's yours.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And we are very excited to share our story with you all, particularly as we know that Kosiamo, Patty Phillips and the team are doing some wonderful work over at IFTDO. So Hugh, if you could just go on to the next slide, please. So we are Senis AI, and we stand for empowering business leaders within associations to navigate their future with confidence. And our position is that associations' internal data holds a tremendous amount of value that has never fully been unlocked until today. So with that, our vision of the world is one where leaders have all of the answers to their most critical questions at their fingertips. So our agenda for today, once we've introduced ourselves, we'll start speaking about the common problems that we found after speaking with multiple associations over the last couple of years. So we'll talk to the common problems that we found, and then we'll map the value of data both in terms of tangible actions and also the impact on membership organizations. Then we'll speak to our role in supporting associations through this tectonic shift within the industry that is artificial intelligence. And we'll finally end with some case studies, some real life case studies from associations using AI to analyze data and a demo of our platform. Next slide. Cool. So I'll just kick us off with a quote from the CEO of NVIDIA. So he said that AI will be the most transformative technology of the 21st century, and it will affect every single industry and every aspect of our lives as well. And he's not wrong. So what we're discussing today is how AI is specifically affecting membership organizations and their understanding of member behavior, preferences, and needs, and therefore how AI is impacting the association industry and our lives today. So quick intro from us. I'm an entrepreneur, Marco Calabrese, co-founder and CEO at Senis AI. My professional background is in driving technological innovation to support growth across a multitude of industries, but I've always felt like there was something missing, and that was because I didn't feel like the work that I was doing was part of a true cause. So today is a real privilege for me to run Senis AI alongside Hugh, as I find myself helping the friendliest sector on the planet to adopt the most exciting technology that has ever existed. Hugh?
I'm Hugh Halford-Thompson, co-founder and CTO here at Senis AI. My background, I've been an entrepreneur for about 12 years. I had a real job before that for a bit, but I've spent the last 12 years building out businesses, initially in the crypto space, the blockchain space, working with some of the world's largest companies like Visa and BHP, and really looking at how we can unlock efficiencies in a lot of their processes. I've been following AI for over a decade, since before it was called AI, it was statistical analysis. And really, since ChatGPT came out, since generative AI came out, I've started looking at it more from the angle of all these things that I've been asked to automate, where I've had to tell people, you got to hire a human. Sorry. Actually, I'm rethinking that. And there's so many new things that are now unlocked, so many things you can do with it that I find really interesting. And obviously, we're now applying this to the association sector.
So over the last couple of years, we've spoken to over 100 associations, and we've synthesized all of the common problems that we've heard from speaking with many associations, and they broadly fall into these sort of three pillars: the strategic, operational, and member experience challenges. So as a starting point, many associations do collect data either passively or through their systems, or actively through the forms or spreadsheets. But the problem isn't really how much data they're collecting. We find that it's very much how quickly are they able to get value from that data through insights and building out strategies. So what I mean by value, well, data isn't really intrinsically useful. It's only as useful as the insights that it provides. And one key problem at the heart of all of this is that data tends to be fragmented across multiple systems, whether they be events, management systems, marketing systems, but understanding the patterns and correlations across these systems is a real challenge, and that's one of the big problems that we've seen so far. Hugh?
Yeah, and what I find is really if people can't act with the data, if they can't get the insights that they need and see value from that data, then they're not always collecting it that well in the first place. But there's been quite a change as people realize in the last few years the value of data. I mean, really across all organizations everywhere, but especially in the association sector in the last few years, where you realize once you can start analyzing it, then people are starting to clean it up, collect it better, collect more of it, and segment it. And from this, they can gain these better analytics. What we also find is where you have a slightly larger organization who's already gone through this process without AI, you tend to have one or two, maybe more data people who end up as the bottleneck, where everybody is asking them questions. What's difficult there is because they're the only ones who understand analytics, the only people who can speak to their data in effectively in computer code. It makes it very difficult for people to relate to that. They become that bottleneck for getting insights from that data, and then people often give up asking the simple questions. They're not empowered to get access to those insights. Anything to add, Marco?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to that point, Hugh, manual analysis is very much a grueling exercise, and as you said, it's very much limited to either experts that in their own right understand how to look at data, spot correlations, or, and we find this a lot actually, it seems to be a role that is just thrusted upon unsuspecting staff members, so they then become pigeonholed as the sort of the data analysts without ever wanting to be data analysts. So that causes the bottleneck that you mentioned, and by extension a huge time delay between a question that you might want to ask, such as, okay, which of my member segments are growing or shrinking, and actually getting the answer to that question. So what's the outcome to that is that leaders then end up falling back onto what they know, which is relying on their intuition to make decisions, as opposed to relying on data.
And if you can segment it better, you can identify at-risk members, you can identify at-risk demographics within your membership. Different types of segmentation can really help, and you can start to see patterns like which can be cross-department, where, say, engagement with one part of the association actually tends to trigger more engagement with another part, and you can start focusing your resources in the right place because of it.
And exactly, so that's exactly the point. So, and the trouble is, if you skip that step of analyzing data, whether you do so manually or otherwise, and then you have to rely on intuition, it really does run the risk of prioritizing the wrong initiatives. And that has two problems with it. So first of all, if you prioritize the wrong initiative, you might find yourself 6 months down the road having invested a considerable amount of resources in something that just doesn't provide anywhere near as much value as it could. But the other side to that is that there's an opportunity cost on prioritizing the wrong initiatives. So if the initiative that has the highest ROI is overlooked and at times never got into, then it doesn't do the association any service. Was there anything else on that slide, Hugh, that might want to cover?
I think that's it from me on that. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship between data and value, and I think around how you, what type of data you can collect and the type of value that it can really provide for your association.
Yeah, just before we do that, there was one other point I wanted to mention on this, and at the core of all of this is the understanding of your members. So every insight or every strategy really revolves around serving members at the best possible level. And like I said, at the core of that is understanding your members. So that means their needs, their preferences, their behaviors, what they say, what they what they would like to be changed. And the extension of that is understanding how well they're using your benefits. Because you might find that, and we found this actually with one organization, that they felt that professional development courses was the main reasons for members joining. But then when we looked at the data, actually only 5% of the entire member base was taking the courses themselves. So this is the conclusion of the common problems. Next slide, please, Hugh. So as I mentioned at the start, data, most association leaders would agree that data is important, but what we wanted to do with this slide is just to pick out three really important metrics that are sort of not just critical in terms of understanding members, but also highlighting the potential insights that can be drawn from these metrics, and then subsequently what sort of action plan could be put together. So as a starting point, engagement score, absolutely crucial in terms of understanding the health of the membership organization. And with this, you might find that student engagement is declining 20% year on year, whereas another segment, let's say certified members, are actually their engagement is actually increasing. So with this, you can really focus your engagement strategy and engagement efforts to hone in specifically on students.
And there's all sorts of data and insights that can come from the data. So another example is looking at what benefits are most and least popular and among which segments of your membership. And say coming out of that, you might find, as one Marco mentioned earlier, that only a few of your members are taking the accreditation course, but a whole load of them are attending events. Then you might want to start revisiting either should you be doing the accreditation course in the first place? Is it something that's actually providing value to your member base, or is it just a cost for you that's providing very little benefit? Or is it something that needs to be marketed and communicated better, either to the membership as a whole or to the various segments where you're struggling there?
And the third metric here to look at, which is very important, is of course revenue. And what I mean by revenue is specifically different revenue streams. So a potential insight when analyzing revenue would be 70% of total revenue comes from publications, whereas only 3% come from webinars. So an action point there might be to consider diversifying your revenue stream, either across new initiatives or to sort of promote more revenue generation through your existing benefits and offering?
So yeah, and there's a lot of data points that can really help you identify what's going wrong with the organization, which segments you need to focus on, and then what you can do about it at a high level. But that's just at a high level. From here, what you really need is an action plan. So on the next slide here, we've got quite a lot of detail here. We're not going to go through all of it, but just to the idea here is to show a few examples on what you can actually do about it in more detail. But yeah, do you want to kick us off, Marco?
Absolutely. So if we take a look at scenario 2 in the center there under membership strategy, keeping members engaged. So a scenario might be if total active members are declining over time, then it might make sense to really drill down into who of which member segment within those active members are declining. And again, you might find that some might well be declining and therefore dragging the overall average down. But you might find that some are either plateauing or in fact growing. So the impact there, of course, when you're targeting your engagement strategy on those more sort of at-risk member segments, is sustained membership growth and reduced churn.
So another one, just to pick one more out in the bottom left here. If you've got referrals driving all your training registrations instead of email campaigns, and then you might want to start looking at more word of mouth promotion, referral campaigns, and other things of that type, rather than spending more on your email marketing campaigns. And we'll be talking through a real life example of that a little later in the presentation. But the effect of this can be much more cost-effective marketing, less wastage within your operations, and higher training or event participation rates.
Can I ask a question or make a comment?
Please do.
So this is Kazuyama from IFTDO. And the thing that's really jumping out at me in this particular slide is, well, intuition is helpful, and I know this for myself. It may seem intuitive because everyone else would lean toward email, for example. But the data here is indicating that that strategy probably isn't working for you. So leverage the strategy that has the biggest bang for the buck, I suppose. So that's what I'm.
It's absolutely that, and and so what we try to enable people with, and we'll go through more how we do it later, but is how do we turn that data into the insights, into then the actionable steps to do something about it, improve the organization, and measure the impact. When you move to data driven, you get a lot of benefits.
Yeah, so the word that's coming to mind for at the moment is precision. More precision in terms of our decisions and our direction.
Absolutely. Well put.
Thank you.
Next slide. So at this point, we've touched on some of the common problems that associations face and the mapping sort of data points to value. But the question is now, how can associations unlock that value? So before we move on to that, we'll just mention who we are and what we stand for. So our vision is to become the #1 provider of membership intelligence for associations. And our mission is to give association leaders confidence and certainty about their future by understanding their members on the deepest possible level and in the shortest space of time.
Sorry, this is my one. So yeah, we've built a platform that really focuses on solving these problems. And really, we kick off at the bottom here with the integration layer. And the idea is to pull all your data into one place and make it super easy to analyze data across different silos. It could be that you have a single CRM, everything's in one place, so we can pull in data from there and do the analysis. It could be you're using various systems, either best in class, or you've got various legacy systems and spreadsheets, and we can read from those too, again, pull it all in one place and give you those insights. We then provide you with a dashboard that shows you the data. It enables the analytics and the insights. Importantly, we're lowering the technical difficulty of analytics by enabling you to speak to the AI and to speak to your data just in plain English. What this means is instead of having to rely on the one or two more technical people in the organization, if you're lucky enough to have them, it means that everybody can access analytics. And if you do have data people, you are a data person yourself, it means that you can do the analysis a lot faster. Certainly for myself, I find, and I consider myself a data person, but I find I can look at a certain number of charts, depending on the complexity, 5 or 10 of them, and have that in my head at one time, but the AI can do orders of magnitude more than that and look at much, much more data. So it can really speed you up. And then finally, we provide expert support to help you with the analytics, or also to help connect you to the right people to implement any change that you need. And this will help ensure you really realize your vision and get the most out of your data.
So the 3 pillars of our technology are data assessment, analytics, and insights. So poor quality data in leads to poor insights and analytics out, of course. So we're very conscious of ensuring that we improve the quality of the data, but also highlight any gaps between the data that's currently being collected by our clients and the data that they could be collecting given their objectives. So we have an automated data quality check that's run by AI in the background, and therefore we can provide insights on the quality of the data in some cases within the same day. Onto the analytics dashboard now. Many analytics providers take up to months to onboard new clients. The fastest onboarding that we've done has been 6 minutes, although it typically can take within sort of a week or two. So that would mean easy access to all of your data across all systems within just one easy to read dashboard. And finally, lowering the barrier to entry, so allowing non-technical staff to analyze data in plain English by simply just asking the questions that they want directly to the AI, and the AI just does all of the heavy lifting for them. And you can then build out not just insights, but also strategies in seconds. And of course, the AI never sleeps and is available 24/7 to provide continuous support.
And it's interesting, we have this AI that's customer facing, but as we're ingesting data, we're also using AIs to map the data. It's how we get the ingestions done so quickly. We're using different AIs to write the ingestion code. We're using AIs to write the charts. There are so many parts of this business where we thought we need to pull people in to do certain things, and actually we've got AIs building those out for us. And that gives you an idea of like the level of change that you can get to as you adopt AI. I think next we're going to go on to the case studies. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is to bring all of this to life by just showcasing some of the way that innovative associations are using AI to analyze their data. So you can go on to IYC. So the Institute of Internal Communications had a wonderful situation where they were growing at 15% per quarter. So they were growing their member base by 15% per quarter, but very curiously didn't really know why that was. So they didn't know why people were signing up in the first place. They didn't know why people were leaving. So they had a bit of a blind spot in terms of understanding their members. As we mentioned previously, that was, that's a common problem that we find with a lot of organizations. The other interesting thing is that they were working with a consultant, and in the sort of the year that they had that engagement, they didn't spot the fact that within the next 3 months, their membership was actually going to plateau in terms of growth. And when we draw down into the details of this, we found that their retention rate was only 55%. Now, when we draw even further, the year one members, their year one members were the cohort that was really dragging that average down. And in fact, they only had a retention rate of 42%. So again, thinking back to the sort of data to value and scenario examples that we gave earlier, in this situation here, it was quite clear that year one member engagement, at least as a starting point, should be, the initial focus. And just to sort of put a financial figure on that, that was a £130,000 opportunity cost through lapsed members in year one. So we've agreed to build out an AI nurturing assistant that matches their year one members to exactly the resources that they want as soon as they begin their journey with the association. So just to conclude, this several months of work just done in just a few weeks of work.
So another one I want to talk to you about is the Biochemical Society. And this is a client we've been working with for many months now. And they've got, they started off with a whole load of data. It was good data, but stored across many different silos. And what they found is they could analyze their click rates. They could see their renewal rates. They could look at all these sort of individual data points within each of these systems, but there was nothing pulling it all together. And what it meant is cross-department analysis was absolutely impossible the way they were set up. We started looking at their data, initially looking at membership and segmentation. And then they wanted to work out, they initially had a plan to increase their email marketing in order to increase the event attendees. Now, in order to look at the data, we looked at the membership, we looked at the events that they were running, the registrations. These were big conferences in person, other types of events. They also had online training courses, educational courses, and other professional courses online. What we found when we actually looked into the data is for the training courses, they were right. They needed to optimize their email marketing strategy. They need to time them better. And they looked at us for how to optimally time the different drips that they're sending out before an event. But then for the conferences and all their big events, it turns out about 80% or so were coming from word of mouth. So the email campaigns they were sending not only were not particularly effective, but they were spending a huge amount of time on them. They're big events. They're spending more time than any of the others, and they're having very little effect. So through that, they changed their strategy a bit. We've helped them reduce email fatigue, target their marketing better, but then also set up a referral program that they're now implementing that will help drive those big events to have more people showing up. Anything to add, Marco?
No, I was just to add, that was a really big aha moment, wasn't it? When they had a sense that their email marketing was fatiguing a bit, but they certainly didn't realize that only 10% of attendees were coming to their conferences from their email marketing. So, that was very much a sort of a revolutionary shift in the way they communicated their events.
So the next one is WEC, the World Employment Confederation.
Yeah. So the World Employment Confederation, so most associations are on a data journey. the World Employment Confederation was very much at the start of this journey. So a lot of the work that we did was around improving the quality of their data. So going back to the the 3 pillars of our technology, the data assessment is really where we focused on to just strengthen the quality of that data and suggest what other data they could be collecting around engagement. But in any case, the data that we did have that was focused primarily on events, we found we analyzed who was attending their events for first time only and who was repeating their attendance. And we found that most of their members, let's say 15 or so %, were the ones that are all attending the events, whereas the lion's share of their members weren't actually attending the event at all. So that was a huge wake-up call in that they thought that actually their events were doing quite well, but there was an enormous opportunity to drive more attendance to events because the majority of members weren't actually coming to their events at all. So with that, we built out a communication plan for at-risk members, again those members that weren't attending events, and an event promotion plan as well using our platform.
And depending on the organization, it could be as well that the people who are members but not showing up to these events, they might be getting value elsewhere, but it's important to understand where so you can drive that engagement much better. Something else we did with WEC was also around survey analysis, which I won't go into a load of detail, but if you have open-ended surveys where people are writing a lot of comments, it's impossible to read through them by hand. AI is fantastic at it, as you might imagine. And something we can do with that is effectively reverse engineer new questions where we can see what are the topics people are talking about, even if they're not the things you asked them. And then how do they feel about it? Was it a positive or negative sentiment that you're getting around it? So we pulled some of that in for WEC as well. Next, we're going to go into a demo, which Marco is going to kindly share.
Before you go to the demo, could I make another comment? So this is Kazuyama again. And I've been on, I wouldn't say a large number of association boards, but a fair number over the years. And the case that you just described really hits home for me, because in every single case, what I would hear after a conference was how many people came and how pleased everyone was with how many people came. Well, who were they? And in many cases, these organizations, they were the same faces that come every year. And then there was this, kind of turnstile of other people. So it was really interesting that something as obvious as what you just described is something that almost no one does. Really figure out who they are, are they new? What's the kind of the member profile? What percentage of the members are joining these events? Do they even want live events? The questions that we don't ask. We just assume, again, in good intuition, or we've always done it this way. So thank you very much. That was really a big wake-up call for me.
Thank you, Cosimo. We have a question from Tom Powell.
Yes, to that point, I'm curious about how many of these actionable insights that you find are really generalizable across associations rather than association specific.
So the way we're doing it, because we're pulling in the data from the specific association, the insights that you're getting from the AI will be related to your association and your data. In terms of what we're finding, there's some things that are more specific. I would say there's certainly some that are generalizable. And as we move forward over time, we get more people using this. It's the sort of thing where you could start seeing sort of benchmarks as well around the industry to see what sort of things different people are doing. But yeah, we certainly see like the IOSC example. they pitched it to us as like, this is what we do as an association. We wanted to understand their reason for being, and it was all about these professional development courses that you have to remind me the numbers, Marco, but I think it's 1%, or it might have been 1 or 2, but it was a very small number of the members that were actually using it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was I think it was certainly below 5. And Tom, if I may just add to Hugh's points there. So general guidance is certainly useful, and there might be some takeaways here from specific case studies, but it goes back to my original point back on the problem slide, which is the problem of prioritizing the right initiatives. So by analyzing specific data within a specific organization, you can then prioritize initiatives accordingly. So, the Biochemical Society, they had to prioritize the way they were communicating and promoting their conference, whereas the Institute of Internal Communication needed to prioritize year 1 member engagement, something that the Biochemical Society didn't actually have a problem with, or at least not much of a problem. Certainly not as big a problem as a communication challenge. So hopefully
that's a good point, Marco. I think all the points are generalizable up to a point. So the IOIC example, when we go into specifics, yes, it's about them, but more generally, there's a lot of associations who offer things that, benefits of sorts that members just don't engage with, and they should probably shut them down. There's others where they're not engaging enough, and they should probably communicate them better. But which ones are going to make the biggest difference if you act on them first?
Just a quick follow-up. It may be a point with associations and their chapters, as well as associations of associations like ASAE. But I'm particularly interested. Have you worked with large associations that have a number of chapters and segmented the data, analyzed it by chapter to provide different insights, different actions, recommendations to different chapters?
I would love to say coming soon. So we're where we are now, we've done that for chapters of bigger associations, and we've started some discussions about going out to the larger association and doing exactly that. But no dates, nothing locked in yet. But if you look at that, in terms of how we can help there, if we're looking at the overall organization, each of the individual chapters can really help. And then each of the individual chapters, we can help them individually, and then that parent organization, they can start looking at that overall data. They can look at which chapters are doing better and worse, how it's comparing initiatives in different places, and that can be really powerful.
And can I just make a comment to Tom as well? So IFTDO is actually an association of associations, and one of the reasons I've worked with Marco and Hugh, with ISPI Potomac, and with some other projects, but the hope really is to give IFTDO a better insight in terms of being an association of associations, which is very different from an association of members, right? So how do I serve an association versus how do I serve Tom, right? So what's valuable to the association and their members, which are some things that we're kind of working through. I've actually had a meeting, just real quick. I was even trying to wrap my head around that. Okay, we're planning these things which seem intuitive for all the other associations I've been involved with, but do those even apply to an association of associations? And now I will stop talking.
Thank you, Cosiamo. Halford, you have your hand up. You have a question?
Yes, please. First, thank you for this presentation and also for this possibility, because we've been doing some of these things, but obviously taking more time and more resources. Maybe my question is a parallel to the content, which is like, are there any prerequisites, what is the readiness level that is required for such a solution to be implemented? maybe in terms of size, in terms of existing softwares or not, in terms of, proper focal points in the institution to be able to, anyway, to set out probably the proper indicators and the proper reporting indicators. So that's more my question.
That's a very good question, and thank you for that. I'd say certainly from my perspective, a key starting point is engagement markers that are normally stored in a CRM system or an event system. So what our platform provides is analysis across your user journey, your member journey. So as much detail around that journey as possible would be ideal. And I'm sure, Hugh, you'll have you're more ingrained in the data side, so you'll have more points.
Yeah. So in terms of readiness, I think firstly you need to be big enough that the data is going to help. If you have 50 members, you probably know them all personally. If you have 50 members, but then you do, we've got an association we're talking to now. They've got, I think it's a couple of hundred members, but then they do events with 20,000 people or more. So suddenly there's, how many people are you engaging with within those members or within the wider audience? Once that goes up, above a few hundred or a couple of thousand, then you're definitely starting to get much better insights from the data. In terms of readiness within the organization, I would say you need to know, firstly, you need to know where your data is. There's a couple of organizations we found where it's kind of a little scattered all over the place. We do work with some who've been on spreadsheets. We started with the Biochemical Society. We started with spreadsheets, and that worked really well. We've had one organization we were trying to do spreadsheets, but where they've got very different formats for every event that they do. And there's no consistency there. So the first thing there, yes, we can bring in the older ones, but it's more of a painful process for us. So the first thing there I would say is let's standardize that moving forwards and put those systems in place. If you have IT systems for it, so if you've got Umi, Wicket, or any other CRM or AMS system, or events apps, MailChimp and other email campaign systems, all of those will have APIs, and we can connect into those very, very easily. There are, I suppose, there's some exceptions with some very old systems where it can be a bit more difficult to connect. So knowing how to connect would be one of the first conversations I would have with you if you've got some of those older systems. But as long as there is a way of exporting the data in one way or another, then we can ingest that in and turn that into the insights and charts that you need.
Thank you. Maybe I have also a follow-up question here. For instance, let's say, when you have an institution that has CRM, HRM, LMS, learning management system, let's say EMIS, education management system, TMS, training management system, kind of, let's say, a Ministry of Education. Does this solution apply to that, or rather no, it has better edge?
It does, absolutely. So we look at it as every organization we work with has members that can be people, they can be companies, can be federations and others. And those members are engaging in one of many, many ways. That could be attending events. It could be with their membership, their training. It could be online learning. It could be educational. And for each of these, we could be plugging into, again, one CRM, a set of spreadsheets, or different systems for each one of them as it's wider. It's a long way of saying yes. But yeah, absolutely, we can help with that. And within those systems as well, the more data you've got around the way they engage, the more we can segment, the more you can start working out strategies for different parts of your membership as well. Shall we jump onto a quick demo? Are you ready to go, Marco?
Yeah, absolutely. Just checking in with Kosiamo and Andy. I don't know if you have any other questions in the pipeline whilst we're on the roll. Otherwise, I can flip over to the demo. Good.
Looks good on this end.
Okay, lovely. Got the thumbs up. Perfect. Can everybody see my screen? Great. So
Yes.
lovely. So this is an example association where we've created some test data for. So the three pillars really that we focus on are membership, events, and sponsorship as well. So in this dashboard here, we have our membership dashboard, and as you might expect, we have sort of number of active members, growth over time, total engagement score over time, and interestingly, how members actually engage based on different engagement markers in the 12 months after joining. So if you just highlight here, we have how they engage with your email correspondence, event attendance and registrations and the like. But really
that can be really powerful. This is where you would see, for example, how the if people are signing up specifically for training, specifically for e-learning, or specifically for events, you can see that little spike in the first month after they're joining.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what really brings this to life, and again, this is about empowering non-technical or sort of non-data specialists to draw out insights. So here we might ask, what can you tell me about the engagement from my members? So here, what it's doing is the AI is pulling data across all of the relevant charts on this dashboard. And as you can see here, it's found some seasonal spikes in engagement, showing sort of seasonality and patterns. It's mentioned some variability, which I think again alludes to the seasonality. It's mentioned the average engagement score reflects similar fluctuations, and then some actionable next steps as well. So obviously this is very much at a higher level in terms of enhancing event programming, strategizing on your campaigns, and focusing on engagement analysis. So if I ask it to drill down a little bit and say, okay, give me a 10-step plan to enhance programming.
And this will speak to you in any language, literally. It works very well in any language, any alphabet.
Absolutely. So I'll just flip over to the events dashboard quickly as well. And from here, I can ask, okay, what trends spot that I should be aware of?
And this is a very high level question that you might ask to a data consultant, for example. We're trying to replicate in terms of the way, the way I would respond, the way Marco would respond. And it's looking high level across everything. It will drill down into certain aspects. And then you can actually click on any of those to go deeper into each topic. And it really helps you dive into that data and understand your organization.
Absolutely. So some of the concluding points here are to focus on converting event registrations to higher attendance rates. So it's picked out that there's a discrepancy between those two factors. Need for deeper engagement, with diverse event formats showing varying degrees of success. So the key thing here, so we've built this platform to really help users along their analysis journey. So again, the AI does the heavy lifting, and then it prompts you for sort of suggested next steps, but also suggestions on what to ask next, such as what marketing channels are driving the most engagement. And here's the result. The top performer is social media, balance engagement via multiple channels, and it breaks that down. And again, we go into conclusion and actionable next steps.
Fantastic. Just in the interest of time, I think let's jump back to the deck and we can go into any final questions as well. But yeah, in terms of who we're working with and traction we've got great event partners with MEMCOM, with associations of associations, so AAE and ASAE. We announced a partnership with UMI, the CRM provider, just a couple of weeks back. We're working with Wicket, and there's actually two, I think 3 others that are about to be added to that list, so work in progress. In terms of customers we've been working with, we've got a long list on the right here. We did various pilots starting last year in August, did short-term projects with a few, and then we've had long-term customers come in, signing 3-year contracts. For us, that's really testament to the value of the insights that they're getting. They've all started off initially doing shorter projects and now working with us longer term. And then I'm going to hand over to Marco for some final thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say the key takeaway here is that AI is very much here to stay. We believe it's the most transformational technology since the internet, and actually arguably considerably more exciting as well, because now non-technical individuals can drive data analysis using natural conversation. So associations no longer need to rely on expensive data consultants or on intuition to provide value to their members. So with that in mind, for anybody that's interested in having a conversation about what their future might look like with AI, we're happy to have that conversation with you. Hugh, next slide.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, come and have a conversation with us. In the meantime, are there more questions? Maybe I'll hand to you, Cosiamo, for a moment.
Well, the question that comes to mind is when we were in the AI itself, really in any of those topics, you could drill down into any of the suggestions, right? So it's not limited to a few. You can really drill down and drill down and drill down into any of those topics or questions.
Absolutely. So obviously we started at high level there. What we tend to do, actually every customer that comes in, I actually ask it a certain question first: is there any data that contradicts itself? And we've had members who are 150 years old and all sorts of things come through from that. So that helps us clean it up a bit. But then, yeah, we start with these high level questions. We go into different segments. We've got filters that we didn't show you, where we can really segment that data, and we're teaching the AI now to be able to use those filters for you if you ask about particular segments. And there's a chart library for every chart we've ever made for any customer is available to everyone. As long as you've got the data to support it, that means you can start using those analytics. You get the benefits from the work from others as well.
I'm just going to make a comment, and I know I've talked to Marco about this before, that where I see a lot of value especially in the AI and the ability to have a conversation about the data, is it in some ways, to me, removes fear from the board members. You know, I go in and I can ask my questions to the AI, and I can come to the meeting prepared so that I have some information about what we're going to talk about, and I'm moving beyond my intuition. So it gives me kind of my own private consultant, so that when I go to the board meeting, I am, one, better informed, and maybe more informed than others. And then 2, I'm able to then have a productive conversation with the other leaders of the organization without fear of asking questions, like looking dumb, basically, in the meeting, and relying on the expert, so to speak. So this really helps everyone become more of an expert, I believe. So that's one of the things that jumped out at me right away, because sometimes when you're on these boards, it can be, there can be some friction.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, actually, Cosiamo, because a very welcome and curious use case for this is exactly that, where one of our clients is currently using our platform in board meetings, so there's no longer a need to, you know, actionable next step, find out this particular insight or data point. They just ask the AI the information that they need, and it really makes that board meeting come to life, and very much does away with, you know, weeks of preparing and collating data, because all of that information is just there waiting to be answered.
Brilliant. And less Tylenol for those folks, or Scotch. Depends on what you're into.
Very politely put for the board members. Any more questions?
Oh, I think we are at the end. Let me thank you, Marco, so much. Hugh, thank you, Cosiamo, and thank you, Andy, for the lovely production. Thank you, everyone, for attending from all over the world. Actually, we're happy to have you all. Thank you so much. Our next webinar will be on March 18. And of course, you can follow us on LinkedIn, on our social media platforms, and even on our website. Don't forget to join us in Jakarta, Indonesia. Already, thank you, Andy. You already post our brochure on the chat, so you can have a look and you can register as well as you can. And if you need any information, our IFTDO members are available. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, great night, and wonderful day from all over. To everyone. I don't know, Cosiamo, would you like to conclude with something?
Just a really thank you for joining. I put my LinkedIn in the chat. I'm the director or the chair of the Member Experience Committee, and working with WAFA on bringing these webinars together. So if you or you know someone that would be interested in presenting, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You will receive an email this week with the link to the slides and the recording, and an article that Hugh and Marco have written that goes into a little bit more detail in terms of what this all means. So look for that this week. I appreciate all of you joining. It's so wonderful to be in an audience with people from all over the world. So this is really exciting.
And thank you very much for organizing. We've had a wonderful time. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.